You watched me grow up. You saw my wedding. You saw the birth of my children. For over a decade, my family was a brand. The Duggars were a multi-million-dollar empire. People assumed that because we were on TV, we were set for life. But while the world was watching us, I was struggling to put food on the table. There is a story I was too afraid to tell for a long time. It's a story about contracts I was forced to sign without reading. It's a story about working 18-hour days for a show that I was told was a ministry, only to find out my dad was cashing every single check. My husband, Derick, finally asked the question that changed everything. Jill, how much were you paid for your own birth special? The answer was 0. Today, I am opening the books. I'm talking about the inheritance threats, the lawsuit that tore us apart, and the high price of buying your own freedom. I'm Jill. This is the truth about the money. When people look at the Duggars, they see the big house, they see the buses, the planes, the massive pantry stocked with food. Growing up, we didn't feel poor. We had everything we needed, technically, but we also didn't own anything. Everything belonged to the family. Everything belonged to Dad. When I got married to Derick, I assumed things would be different. I was an adult. I was the star of a spin-off show, counting on. The ratings were huge, but the reality of my bank account didn't match the ratings. I remember one specific day, we were filming a segment about our new life. The crew was there with thousands of dollars of equipment. They had catered lunch, and after they left, Derick and I looked at our budget, and we were worried about buying groceries. It sounds insane, right? How can the woman on the magazine cover be worried about the electric bill? But that was the design. The money went to a central pot, and that pot had a gatekeeper. We were treated like children who needed an allowance, not employees who earned a wage. I was famous, but I was financially powerless. You have to understand the theology we were raised in. We weren't just making a TV show. We were ministering to the world. Dad always framed it that way. We are showing the world how a Christian family lives. We are encouraging people. So when the cameras were rolling for 12 hours a day, we weren't working. We were serving God. And you don't get paid for serving God, right? That was the logic. If we asked about money, we were made to feel guilty. Why are you focused on worldly things? Don't you care about the message? It was a brilliant trap. By calling it a ministry, he bypassed labor laws in our minds. We were volunteers in our own lives. But looking back now, I see the invoices. I see the contracts TLC sent. They weren't paying a ministry. They were paying a production company owned by Jim Bob Duggar. It was a business to him, a calling for us. The day I signed my life away, I didn't even know I was doing it. I was young. I was getting ready to get married. There was so much chaos, wedding planning, filming, excitement. Dad called us into the kitchen. He had a stack of papers. He was casual about it. He said, "Hey, we just need to sign some things for the show. Standard stuff, just to keep things running." He didn't say, "This is a contract that binds you to TLC for years." He didn't say, "This signs over your rights to your own image." He flipped to the last page. He pointed to the line, "Sign here." I trusted him. He's my dad. He protects me, right? That's what fathers do. So I signed. I didn't have a lawyer look at it. I didn't even read it. I just wanted to be a good daughter. That signature cost me years of my life. That signature meant that even when I wanted to quit, even when filming became traumatic, he could wave that paper and say, "You agreed to this." It wasn't a business deal. It was a betrayal of trust disguised as paperwork. Then I married Derick. Derick didn't grow up in the IBLP. He went to public school. He went to college, and eventually he went to law school. He has a brain that works differently than mine. He asks questions. At first, he trusted Dad too. He respected him. But slowly, he started noticing things. He would ask, "Jill, did you get a W-2 form for filming this year?" I would say, "No, Dad handles the taxes." He would ask who pays for the medical bills for the birth. I would say, "We do." Or Dad helps if we ask. Derick looked at me one night and said, "Jill, this doesn't add up. You're the face of the show. You are working full-time. Where is the compensation?" He wasn't being greedy. He was being logical. He realized that I was an employee who had been convinced I was a volunteer. And that made him angry, not at me, but for me. The breaking point wasn't just being broke. It was finding out the truth. We started digging. We started asking questions to the crew members. We found out that the cameramen were getting paid. The sound guys were getting paid. The producers were getting paid. The editors were getting paid. Everyone on that set was making a salary, except the family. And then we found out how much the show was actually making. It wasn't pennies. It was millions, millions. I felt sick. All those times I felt guilty for asking for 25 for gas. Meanwhile, my labor was buying real estate I would never see. It felt like I had been robbed. But it's worse when the robber is the person who tucked you in at night. That realization shattered my world. It meant that my dad loved money more than he respected my autonomy. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Confronting my father is not something you do in the Duggar family. You obey, you nod, you smile, but we were desperate. We had medical bills. We had a new baby. And we knew TLC had paid someone for the birth special that we starred in. I remember the knot in my stomach when we finally brought it up. It wasn't a demand. It was a question. "Dad, can we have some of the money from the birth episode to cover the hospital costs?" I expected him to say, "Of course, sweetie, I forgot to transfer it." Instead, the temperature in the room dropped. He looked at us like we had just cursed in church. He didn't get angry immediately. He got defensive. He started talking in circles. "Well, there are a lot of expenses, the production costs, the taxes. Keeping the big house running is expensive." He made it sound like we were the ones being unreasonable, like we were trying to take food out of my siblings' mouths. He offered us a small amount, a fraction of what the episode made, but he attached conditions. It wasn't a paycheck, it was a gift. And gifts from Jim Bob Duggar always come with strings attached. That conversation was the first crack in the glass. I realized that to him, I wasn't a partner in the family business. It was a liability. When we pressed him further, the argument shifted. He told us, You aren't employees, you are volunteers. He said that Counting On was a ministry platform. He said that by being on TV, we were spreading the gospel. And since it was a ministry, we shouldn't expect a salary. He compared it to mission work. You don't get paid to go on a mission trip. You do it for the Lord. But here is the thing. The camera crew wasn't volunteering. The network executives weren't volunteering. And Dad certainly wasn't volunteering. He was cashing checks worth millions. It was spiritual manipulation at its finest. He used my faith against me. He knew that if he framed it as serving God, I would feel too guilty to ask for money. For a long time, it worked. I felt selfish. I prayed, asking God to help me be less greedy. Now, I look back and I get angry. It wasn't greed, it was labor. And volunteering shouldn't involve signing a 10-year non-disclosure agreement. We moved to Central America for mission work. We wanted to escape the pressure. We wanted to serve, but the cameras followed us. There was this bizarre duality to our life down there. On TV, it looked like this noble, funded adventure. TLC filmed us doing ministry, helping locals, living our life. But when the cameras turned off, we were struggling. We didn't have the family allowance down there. We were relying on donations from supporters for our ministry, but we couldn't use that money for our personal gain. There were times we were counting pennies for groceries. I remember looking at the production crew. They were staying in safe hotels. They had security. They had per diems for food. And there we were, the stars of the show, worried about safety and basic supplies. It felt humiliating. Millions of people were watching us on TV every Tuesday night, thinking we were rich reality stars. Meanwhile, we were living hand to mouth in a foreign country, while my dad sat in Arkansas managing the family trust that we couldn't touch. This is the part that is hardest to admit. There was a point after we came back where things were so tight that we had to accept help from neighbors. We had to look into food pantries. I am Jill Duggar. I grew up in a 7,000 square foot house. I have been on the cover of People magazine. And here I was wondering if we qualified for assistance. The shame was overwhelming, not because there is shame in being poor. There isn't. But the shame of knowing that my own father had the means to help us, owed us money for our work, and chose not to. I felt abandoned. I remember thinking if the fans knew this, they would riot. But we couldn't tell the fans. We were under contract. We were silenced. So we smiled for Instagram. We posted the happy photos, and we hid the struggle. That was rock bottom. That was the moment Derick said, no more. We are getting a lawyer. Derick is a lawyer. That is the one thing Jim Bob didn't plan for. We didn't want to sue. The Bible talks about not suing your brother or your father. It went against everything I was taught. But we tried talking. We tried writing letters. We tried mediation. Dad refused to budge. He thought we were bluffing. He thought Jill is too weak. She'd never take me to court. So we did. We didn't sue for millions in damages. We just sued to get paid minimum wage for the hours we had worked. Think about that. We were the stars of a hit cable show, and we were fighting just to get paid the equivalent of a fast food worker's salary for our time. The legal process was terrifying. I was scared Dad would cut us off completely from the siblings, scared of the backlash. But when we finally got the settlement, it wasn't a lottery win. It was barely enough to cover our costs and give us a fresh start. But the money wasn't the point. The point was the principle. For the first time in my life, I stood up to Jim Bob Duggar and said, "You cannot use me anymore." Whatever check we got, it was the price of my freedom. And honestly, it was worth every penny. When the news broke that we had reached a settlement, people assumed we were suddenly rich. They thought we walked away with millions. Here is the reality. We recovered a fraction of what we were owed. When you break it down by the hours, we filmed for 19 kids and counting on. The settlement amounted to little more than minimum wage. Think about that. For years of carrying a network show, for inviting the world into my birth room, into my wedding, into my most private moments, my father valued my contribution at minimum wage, but he didn't even want to pay that. He fought it. He offered us a lump sum initially, but it came with a catch. If we took the money, we had to sign a permanent silence clause. We would never be allowed to speak about the family, the abuse, or the money ever again. We refused. Derick said, "Jill, your voice is worth more than that check." So we took the lower amount. We took the minimum wage payout so that I could keep my right to speak. I essentially bought my own voice back from my father. It was the most expensive purchase of my life, but looking back, it was the best investment I ever made. You would think that after proving we were unpaid, my family would rally around us. You would think they would ask, wait, are we getting paid? Instead, we were the villains. The narrative inside the big house shifted instantly. We weren't victims of wage theft. We were greedy. We were attacking the family. I received messages from siblings telling me I was bitter. They told me I was Derick's expose Dad's legacy. They said, "Dad has done so much for you. How could you sue him? How could you sue him?" It broke my heart. They didn't see that I was fighting for them, too. Dad is a master at triangulation. He pitted the siblings against us. He made them feel that if they associated with us, they were betraying him. We were uninvited from family gatherings. We were removed from the group chats, went from being the golden child, the first daughter to court, the first to marry, to being the outcast. And all because I asked to be paid for my job. It taught me that in my family, loyalty is valued higher than truth. No, let's talk about the ultimate leverage, the inheritance. My father is worth millions. Real estate, commercial properties, the TV money he saved, it is a massive estate. And he uses it like a weapon. There is an unspoken rule, and sometimes a spoken one, that if you stay in line, you get taken care of. You get a house, you get a car, you get a piece of the pie when he's gone. But if you step out, if you sue, if you write a book, you are cut off. I know for a fact that my name is not on that list anymore, and I'm okay with that. But for my siblings who are still there, that threat is terrifying. They have no education. They have no work history outside of the side of the show or Dad's construction business. If they get cut off, they have nothing. That is why you see some of my brothers defending him so fiercely. They aren't just defending their dad, they're defending their future livelihood. They are hostages to a will that might not even be read for another 20 years. It's not just money, it's control from the grave. If you look closely, you can see who is still on the payroll. Look at the brothers who have houses gifted to them. Look at the ones who work for the family construction company. Look at the ones who are running for political office with dad's funding. Joe. They followed the script and they were rewarded. I don't blame them. I really don't. It is scary to walk away when you have been taught that the outside world will eat you alive. But there is a cost to that money. The cost is your autonomy. You live in a house dad owns. You drive a truck dad bought. You work a job dad gave you. If you ever disagree with him, he can take it all away in an afternoon. I look at their lives and I don't feel jealous. I feel sad. They have the financial security that I lost, but they are living in a cage, a gelded cage maybe, but still a cage. I live in a smaller house. I drive an older car, but I own it. Nobody can take my keys away because they don't like my Instagram post. When I first filed that lawsuit, I felt completely alone. I thought I would be the only one to ever speak up. But then Jinger wrote her book. And now Jason is traveling the world and breaking the rules. I can't take full credit for their journeys, but I know that my lawsuit cracked the door open. When I proved that dad wasn't invincible, it changed the dynamic. When I proved that you could survive and actually thrive without his money, it gave them permission to think. Jinger called me when she was writing Becoming Free Indeed. We talked. It was healing. And seeing Jason, seeing him kiss a girl before marriage, seeing him refuse to settle down immediately, that is the ripple effect. Dad tried to stop me so that I wouldn't influence the others. He failed. The fear is gone. The big house doesn't look so big anymore when you realize the wizard behind the curtain is just a man with a checkbook. My rebellion cost me my inheritance, yes, but it might have bought my siblings their freedom. When Derick and I bought our new house, it wasn't the biggest house in Arkansas. It wasn't a mansion like the one I grew up in, but when I turned that key in the lock, I felt something I had never felt before ownership. Nobody gave us this house. Dad didn't sign the check. TLC didn't pay for the renovation. We worked for it. Derick passed the bar exam, wrote a book. We saved. There is a psychological weight that lifts off your shoulders when you know that no one can kick you out. In the big house, egg house, everything was conditional. You had a roof over your head if you obeyed. You had a car if you followed the rules. Here in my house, the only rules are the ones Derick and I make. I remember walking through the empty rooms and crying happy tears. It was proof that the fear-mongering was a lie. They told us we would fail without the family support. They told us we would crash and burn. We didn't crash. We built a home. And the foundation of this home isn't built on secrets. It's built on hard work docs. Writing Counting the Cost was the terrifying thing I've ever done. For years, I was trained to protect the family name at all costs. Keep sweet. Don't air dirty laundry. But silence is heavy. Silence makes you sick. I didn't write the book to destroy my parents. I wrote it to save myself, and I wrote it for the other people out there who are being controlled by religious or financial abuse. I wanted the record to be set straight. When the book came out, the backlash from the family was exactly what I expected. Silence from some, anger from others. Dad released a statement saying he loved us, but he disputed the facts. Of course he did. But then I started meeting the readers, women who grew up in similar cults, kids who were exploited by family vloggers. They told me, Jill, thank you. You made me feel less crazy. That was the moment I knew I made the right choice. My loyalty isn't to a brand anymore. My loyalty is to the truth. The book was my final resignation letter from the role of the dutiful Duggar daughter. Why may never know the full extent of the Duggar estate. Jim Bob Duggar is smart. He didn't just put money in a savings account. He built a labyrinth. There are LLCs. There are commercial properties. There are rental units scattered across Arkansas. There are trusts. When we were fighting for our pay, we got a glimpse of how complex it really is. He controls the money flow so tightly that even the IRS would have a headache trying to untangle it. And that complexity is part of the control. If a sibling wants to leave, they don't just walk away from a dad. They walk away from a complicated web of financial entanglement. Oh, you want to leave? Well, your name is on this deed. This loan is in your name and you work for this LLC, it traps them. I am lucky. Derick helped me cut those cords. But for the others, I worry that they are stuck in a financial maze that they don't have the map for. The $1 billion betrayal isn't just about cash. It's about using bureaucracy to hold your own children hostage. People always ask me, Jill, do you forgive your dad? The answer is yes. As a Christian, I have to forgive. I don't want to carry a rock of bitterness in my pocket for the rest of my life. I love my dad. I really do. But forgiveness is not the same as trust. I have forgiven him for the money. I have forgiven him for the contracts. But I do not trust him with my business. I do not trust him with my children's privacy. And I do not trust him with my future. We have boundaries now, firm ones. When we see each other, we hug. We say, I love you, but we don't talk about money. We don't talk about the show, and we definitely don't sign anything. It's a sad relationship in some ways. It's not the relationship I wanted with my father, but it's the only safe relationship I can have with him. I had to grieve the father. I thought I had to accept the father I actually have. The cycle stops here. When my boys grow up, they won't have to work for their dinner. They won't have to sign a contract to get a hug. They won't have to perform for a camera to be valued. If they want to be lawyers, great. If they want to be missionaries, great. If they want to work at a coffee shop, great. The money I earn now, it's for them. Not to control them, but to launch them. I want my legacy to be different from my last name. I don't want to be remembered just as Jill Duggar, the reality star. I want to be remembered as Jill Dillard, the woman who fought for her freedom and won. To anyone watching this who feels trapped, whether it's by family, by money, or by religion, please know this: you are worth more than a paycheck. You are worth more than an inheritance. You can walk away with $0 in your pocket and still be richer than the people who tried to buy you. I did it, and I've never been happier. I'm Jill, and I'm finally free.